Railways have been part of many interesting publicity stunts over the years, from the Caledonian Railway parking every engine they could on their newly built bridge over the River Clyde, to many North American railroads crashing old locomotives into each other for the public to see. None, however, may be more bizarre than a German publicity stunt in 1950, where onlookers watched an elephant leap out of a moving monorail. Born in 1909 from a long line of circus showmen, Franz Alto was a keen animal trainer, working with both domestic and exotic animals. He gained most of his experience working for his father's circus, eventually taking over in 1937. Many of his acts involved animals, but he himself was keen on elephants. For publicity, he would often parade these animals through the street to announce the arrival of the circus. In 1949, Alto was in need of another elephant for his show, and so purchased a 3-year-old cow from India, naming it Tuffy. Tuffy was very trusting, which made her easy to train, and given how young and calm she was, Alto felt that she would be great for publicity. Whenever the circus arrived in a new town, Alto would walk her around to attract the attention of locals and the press, and because of how small she was able to visit places that would have otherwise been difficult with any other animal. She visited town halls, handed beer to construction workers, and even sailed around Duisburg on a harbour tour. Alto was a fan of bringing her aboard public trams so she could ride around town, even getting the chance to drive one herself, presumably with adult supervision, in Ruhr. As well behaved as Tuffy was, she wasn't always on her best behaviour when out and about, eating people's potted plants and urinating wherever was most convenient to her. Nonetheless, she proved to be great for publicity, and Alto was more than happy to cover any of the damages she caused. Naturally then, when his circus arrived in Wuppertal in 1950, Alto was keen on parading Tuffy around and taking her for a ride on the Wuppertal Schwebebahn. The Schwebebahn was first opened in 1901 as a passenger railway, with the line following the River Wupper. What made it unique was the decision to build it as a suspended monorail, as most monorails at the time were awkward and found to be unreliable compared to a standard railway. Despite its unconventional design, it proved to be both a fast and efficient line for passengers, still running to this day as one of the oldest suspended railways in the world. At the time, the line had only recently reopened following repairs due to the damage it received during the Second World War, and so Alto was keen to take Tuffy for a ride. When they arrived, local press were practically swarming around Alto and Tuffy to take pictures of this one-of-a-kind event. Tuffy was taken to the ticket office to buy a ticket before being led into a carriage. At first, Alto only wanted to bring himself, his son, and Tuffy aboard to help keep Tuffy calm, but the reporters were persistent, eventually convincing Alto to let them on board too. Things seemed to be alright as the train took off, but as the ride went on, it was found that the cars would swing and sway more than Alto was expecting. Tuffy found the ride very uncomfortable and wanted to turn around to see all the people making noise behind her. However, the amount of passengers and reporters made it almost impossible to do so. Naturally, she began to panic. Alto asked that everyone be quiet to help soothe her nerves, but seeing a literal baby elephant become uneasy in turn made passengers anxious of Tuffy. In her nervousness, Tuffy broke a seat, causing some passengers to panic, which in turn caused her to panic even more. It was between Alte Markt and Aldebrücke when she began moving up and down the carriage, trying to find a way out before running into a window. It took 2 attempts, a broken bench, and several trampled passengers before Tuffy broke through the window, tearing a hole in the side of the carriage and fell 12 meters from the still moving carriage into the shallow river below. Despite some people aboard having cameras, in the panic, nobody managed to capture a photograph of the incident. Once the train arrived at the next station, several injured reporters disembarked while Alto and his son rushed to the river to find Tuffy. Miraculously, Tuffy had survived the fall and was relatively uninjured, if slightly shaken up by the ordeal. She was taken back to the circus to recover, and even managed to perform later that night. Alto seemed pleased with the publicity, but the local government was not. Both he and the head of the traffic department were fined 450 marks each for damages and injuring several people. They also specified that while Tuffy was within the weight limit for the carriage, no animals aside from police or guide dogs were allowed on the railway. Eventually, the circus moved on, but for Wuppertal, the story became quite the local legend. Several businesses named themselves Tuffy after the incident, while many tourist points sell souvenirs featuring the elephant. A small mural is painted on the side of a house facing the Schweiberbahn depicting Tuffy falling. Tuffy herself continued travelling with the circus and riding in trams for publicity, but Alto made sure she had plenty of space. Eventually, when the circus closed down, plans to move Tuffy to the Wuppertal Zoo were made, but fell through. She was sold to Circus Gruss in 1968 and continued to perform until she passed away in 1989. Bizarre publicity stunts still go on to this day, though thankfully few involve dangerous animals mixing with the public. Most circuses today have done away with acts involving animals, so it's very unlikely we'll ever see anything like this again. But you have to admit, it certainly would have made for a hell of an interesting morning commute. Subscribe for more.